Authorities estimated he passed millions of dollars in fake checks across the world. And somehow, the criminal behind it all was still just a teenager. But what made Frank Abagnale Jr. so dangerous wasn't violence. It was something far more subtle. He could make people trust him almost instantly. Teachers trusted him. Bank tellers trusted him. Airline employees trusted him. Even trained professionals trusted him. Because Frank understood something terrifying about human nature. Most people don't verify confidence, they react to it. If someone looked successful, sounded intelligent, and acted like they belonged, people rarely questioned them. Frank studied body language, speech patterns, authority figures. He watched how successful adults carried themselves, then he mirrored them perfectly. At only 16 years old, he could walk into a room full of grown professionals and somehow become the calmest person there. That ability made him nearly impossible to stop. And for years, he turned deception into an art form. But long before the fake checks, before the pilot uniforms, before the FBI manhunt, Frank was just a kid from New York, desperate not to lose everything. Frank William Abagnale Jr. was born on April 27, 1948, in Bronxville, New York. And in many ways, his father became the blueprint for the man Frank would eventually become. Frank Abagnale Sr. owned and operated a stationery business. He was charismatic, smooth, funny, the kind of man who could walk into a room and instantly control it. Young Frank idolized him. According to later interviews, Frank Sr. loved storytelling. Not ordinary stories, big stories, exaggerated stories, tall tales, stories designed to entertain, impress, and persuade. And people loved listening to him. Frank Jr. often accompanied his father on errands and business trips. He watched how his father interacted with adults, how he complimented people, how he made strangers laugh, how he could talk his way out of awkward situations. Frank noticed something important. Confidence could bend reality. If his father spoke with certainty, people believed him, even when the stories sounded unbelievable. At home, Frank Sr. remained larger than life. To young Frank, his father wasn't just a parent. He was a performer, a salesman, a master of persuasion. And unknowingly, he was teaching his son the foundations of social engineering. But behind the charm, the family was collapsing. Financial problems mounted, arguments became frequent. Then came the divorce. Frank was 16. A judge forced him to choose which parent he wanted to live with. Unable to decide, he ran away instead. That moment shattered him emotionally, and in the months that followed, the lonely teenager began experimenting with deception. At first, only in small ways. But those small lies would evolve into one of the most famous fraud sprees in modern history. Frank's earliest scams started small, but incredibly clever. One of his first schemes involved his father's credit card. Frank noticed gas station attendants often handed the card back without carefully checking receipts. So he manipulated the slips, then convinced attendants to give him cash refunds for fake purchases. Sometimes he'd walk away with only a few dollars. Other times, much more. For a teenager in the 1960s, it felt like easy money. And each successful scam boosted his confidence. But the real weapon wasn't the fake paperwork. It was Frank himself. Witnesses later described him as polite, articulate, and unusually mature for his age. He dressed well, maintained eye contact, spoke calmly under pressure. Even when nervous internally, he projected total confidence externally. That combination became lethal because people don't expect criminals to appear charming. They expect criminals to appear suspicious. Frank understood this instinctively, and he used it everywhere. Banks in New York, airports in Louisiana, hotels across the country. Sometimes he'd cash several fake checks in a single day, hundreds of dollars at a time, then thousands. Eventually, authorities estimated his fraud operations totaled roughly $2.5 million in bad checks worldwide. But here's what made Frank different from ordinary thieves. He wasn't stealing through force, he was stealing permission. People willingly handed him money because he made them feel safe, and once he realized how powerful that ability truly was, he aimed even higher, much higher. He decided to impersonate a Pan Am pilot, and somehow, it worked. Frank discovered a loophole airline employees called deadheading. Pilots traveling between assignments often flew for free. To Frank, this sounded like the perfect opportunity. He contacted Pan Am, claiming he was a pilot who lost his uniform. Then, using charm and confidence, he convinced employees to help replace it. Think about how insane that is. A teenager with no flight credentials talked his way into looking like an international airline captain. And once he had the uniform, doors opened everywhere. Airports treated him with respect, hotels upgraded his rooms, passengers admired him. For the first time in his life, Frank wasn't pretending to be successful. To the outside world, he actually looked successful. He traveled through more than 20 countries, posed for photos, attended parties, stayed in luxury hotels, and all of it rested on one fragile illusion. Because beneath the polished smile and captain's uniform, Frank was constantly terrified. Terrified someone would ask the wrong question. Terrified someone would discover he couldn't actually fly a plane. And the pressure only grew worse when he escalated again. This time, into hospitals. Frank forged a Harvard medical credential and managed to secure a supervising role at a Georgia hospital. It sounds impossible, but again, people trusted appearances. The white coat, the confidence, the vocabulary. And Frank was smart enough to stay in positions where he could avoid direct responsibility. He delegated tasks, observed constantly, copied behavior, but internally, he was unraveling. Because unlike fake checks, medicine carried real consequences. One mistake could kill someone. And according to Frank himself, a near-disastrous medical emergency finally scared him enough to leave. So once again, he vanished. New identity, new city, new profession. And by now, the FBI was finally beginning to realize something alarming. All these scams might be connected. For nearly 5 years, Frank had been cashing fraudulent checks across multiple countries. At first, authorities assumed the crimes were unrelated. Different names, different disguises, different states. But eventually, patterns emerged. The forged checks looked similar, the methods matched, the suspect descriptions overlapped, and investigators slowly realized they were hunting one person, a teenager. One FBI agent became especially determined to catch him, Joseph Shea. The chase became deeply personal. Every time authorities got close, Frank disappeared again, sometimes only hours ahead of arrest, other times, minutes. According to later accounts, Frank even interacted directly with investigators without being recognized. That level of confidence stunned authorities because Frank didn't just escape law enforcement. He psychologically manipulated them, and for years, he kept winning. Until someone from his personal life finally betrayed him, a woman named Monique. While living in France under another false identity, Frank met a young French woman named Monique. Accounts differ on exactly how long they dated, but by several retellings, the relationship became serious. For perhaps the first time in years, Frank tried to live somewhat normally, but secrets eventually destroy intimacy, and Frank's entire existence was built on secrets. The relationship ended, and sometime later, after seeing Frank's image connected to international fraud investigations, Monique recognized him immediately. Authorities had been searching desperately for the mysterious young con artist. Now they finally had a face, and in 1969, French police closed in. Frank attempted to flee, but after years of outrunning banks and investigators, the chase was over. He was 21 years old. His criminal career had lasted roughly 5 years, and during that time, he had cashed an estimated $2.5 million in fraudulent checks across 26 countries. The world-famous con artist was finally caught, but prison would lead to the strangest twist of all. After his arrest in France, Frank served prison time in several countries connected to his fraud operations. First France, then Sweden, then the United States. Conditions in some European prisons were reportedly brutal. Eventually, after being returned to America, Frank received a sentence of approximately 12 years in federal prison, but he would not serve the full term. After roughly 5 years incarcerated, the federal government made him an extraordinary offer: help authorities understand fraud and earn conditional freedom. The FBI realized something important. Frank understood financial deception better than almost anyone alive. He knew how criminals manipulated trust, how forged checks bypassed systems, how banks overlooked vulnerabilities. So the former con artist began consulting with federal authorities, then banks, then major corporations. Eventually, Frank founded a legitimate security consulting business specializing in fraud prevention. Ironically, the same talents that once made him a criminal now made him incredibly valuable. For decades, Frank lectured financial institutions on identity theft, forgery prevention, and confidence scams. The teenager who once impersonated authority figures became a real authority figure himself. And over time, his transformation fascinated the public almost as much as his crimes did, especially after Hollywood told his story. In just 5 years, Frank Abagnale Jr. built one of the most legendary fraud careers in modern history. Millions stolen, dozens of identities, 26 countries, and nearly every major authority figure fooled along the way. But perhaps the strangest part of Frank's story is what happened after the crimes ended. Most criminals spend their lives running from their past. Frank built a legitimate career because of his past. The knowledge he gained through deception became the foundation of his success. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Wild Stories After Dark for more unbelievable true stories and tales that sound too insane to be real, but are